Have you ever really stopped to think about what happens after you take a bite of food? It's this incredible, complex journey, and it all kicks off with that very first bite. So let's start with a simple question. When you're eating something, where does the process of digestion actually start? What's your first guess?
If you thought the stomach, you are definitely not alone. That's what most people would say. But it turns out the real journey begins way, way earlier than that.
Yeah, that idea that it all starts in the stomach, it's one of the biggest myths about digestion. It kind of makes sense, right? But it skips over the crucial first step that happens the moment you start chewing.
It just feels right, doesn't it? We think of our stomach as this big churning cauldron where all the magic happens. But the truth is, the process of chemically breaking down our food, it begins right at the front door. So before we get to that exact starting line, let's zoom out a bit and take a quick look at the whole racetrack. It's called the alimentary canal, and you can think of it as the superhighway our food travels down. Now, our food makes a few key stops along this highway. It starts in the mouth, travels down the esophagus to the stomach, then winds its way through the small intestine and finally at the large intestine. But today, we are all about that first stop, the mouth.
Okay, let's really dive into this. The mouth, or the buccal cavity if you want to get technical, is where everything gets started. And its first job is a big one, a powerful mechanical mission.
This whole mission is carried out by a super coordinated team. You've got your teeth, which act like a mortar and pestle, crushing and grinding the food into tiny pieces. Then you have the tongue, which is like a master mixer, tossing everything around and coating it with saliva. The end goal of all this action? To turn that bite of food into a soft, round, slippery ball called a bolus, which is perfect for swallowing.
And here's a really cool piece of design. Go ahead, touch the roof of your mouth with your tongue. That hard, bony part you feel? That's the hard palate. It's literally a wall separating your digestive system from your respiratory system. It's the whole reason you can chew your food and still breathe at the same time. Pretty ingenious, right?
But all that mashing and grinding is only half the story. There's a secret chemical mission happening at the exact same time. And it's all thanks to one key ingredient, saliva.
And we make a ton of it. The average person produces up to 1.5 liters of saliva every single day. And that's because it's so much more than just water. It's packed with a secret chemical weapon. And here it is. Meet salivary amylase. You might also hear it called ptyalin. This is a special type of protein called an enzyme, and it has one very specific job: to launch the first chemical attack on carbohydrates the second they land in your mouth.
So what's it attacking? Well, it goes after starches. A good way to picture a starch molecule is like a long, complicated necklace made up of hundreds of tiny sugar molecules all linked together. That's what polysaccharide means. Poly for many and saccharide for sugar, a many-sugared chain.
Now, salivary amylase isn't powerful enough to break that whole necklace down into individual beads. Not yet, anyway. Instead, its job is to snip that long chain into smaller, easier-to-handle pieces, pairs of two sugar molecules. And this two-sugar unit has its own name, maltose. It's a disaccharide, di for two. So now we can finally put all the pieces of the puzzle together. We can see exactly why scientists say digestion starts in the mouth. It's not just about chewing. It's all about this very first chemical reaction.
Think of it like this. Step 1, you eat something starchy. Immediately, step 2, the salivary amylase in your spit gets to work, acting like a tiny pair of chemical scissors. And step 3, it snips that long starch chain into little two-sugar pairs, creating maltose. The very first chemical cut has been made.
And that's the key takeaway here. The crushing and grinding is super important. It's called mechanical digestion. But the true start of digestion is defined by that first chemical change, turning that big starch molecule into smaller maltose molecules. That's the real starting pistol for the whole digestive race.
Which, of course, leaves us with a pretty cool question. If all of this is happening in your mouth, which is a pretty mild environment, what kind of intense, powerful chemistry is waiting for that food once it hits the super acidic environment of the stomach? Well, that's a story for next time.